With that we are done with the parietal lobe. The next up is the occipital lobe. Occipital lobe is on the medial aspect. You have define occipital lobe very clearly with the parieto-occipital sulcus, everything behind it. On the anterior lateral aspect, again I'll refer to the lecture on the gross anatomy. There is parieto-occipital sulcus and pre-occipital notch here, and between them you can demarcate the occipital lobe behind. So visual area, there are primary and association visual areas. So this is area 17. On the medial aspect you can see 17 just parallel to the calcarine sulcus, the area that is above and below the calcarine sulcus, the area 17. And the above it will be present in cuneus, below it is present in lingula, and backward it will go all the way back to the tip of the occipital pole. So it is again a sensory area, so it will have layer 2 and 4, the granular layers very much well developed, and that is also called striate cortex because these layers of bilars are very prominent there, and these striations are seen in dissection. And it receives the optic radiation, which is the terminal point where the visual pathway ends. And you can map whole of this area against each point of the retina. Each point of the retina, each point of the visual field is received at a particular point of the primary visual cortex. And the left hemisphere, occipital lobe, left primary visual cortex is receiving right field of vision from the both eyes. That is the temporal field of vision of my right eye and nasal field of vision of my right temporal field of vision of my right eye and nasal field of vision of my left eye. These are being received on the left side of the occipital pole. And the point where the area of most acute signal, that is the macular lutea. By the way, I have a lecture on the visual pathway. Please feel free to explore that. So that area that receives is received at the tip of the occipital pole, the area of the macula, and you can figure it out. Just look at my pointer here and fixate your eye on the pointer, and without moving on the pointer you can still see that there is text below it and there is picture on the right side, but it's highly unlikely that you can read something a little distance away from it even you can see it is written in English. So that is the area of the macula lutea, and most of this area is supplied by posterior cerebral artery. But this part of the primary visual cortex, this point, it has a dual blood supply in addition to the this posterior cerebral artery, middle cerebral artery also supplies it, and that becomes very important in the case of infarct. So if any particular point of this primary visual cortex is damaged, the signal from that part of the retina fails to be received here. So there will be a black point on your field of vision because that point on the field of vision, that signal from the retina, it's not received there. So there will be contralateral homonymous hemianopia. In most of the cases, the injury is due to the posterior cerebral artery infarct. If posterior cerebral artery infarct has occurred, then the part of the primary visual cortex that receives the signals from macula lutea part of the retina, the part where most acute field of vision was received, that part is spared because it is due to an additional supplied by the middle cerebral artery. So the person will develop contralateral homonymous hemianopia with macula sparing. With macula sparing. Then there is this visual association area, secondary visual area. These are areas number 18 and 19, and its function is similar to that of other association areas. It receives the information, it gets the information that was received in area 17, the primary visual cortex, and it relates that to past experience and makes it something recognizable. I'm looking at my friend, I'm looking at a TV screen, this is a window, this is a fan. So these structures, that recognition, this is a text, this is my brother. So all of these recognitions, making sense of the vision that is occurring here, the visual area. And it is not limited to the actual recognition of the objects. It extends way beyond that. The recognition of colors, your judgment regarding movement, your judgment regarding depth of perception, and there are so many other things. Have you ever thought how much calculation goes in your mind when you just can see after a person has shot a ball and you are trying to catch it? It's going in such a parabolic curve, and you just see it, you analyze it, and you run to the point where the ball will fall and you catch it. So all these complex calculations, these are being done in the association areas. So association areas are majorly present in occipital lobe, and the extensions are going to the parietal and temporal lobe. And there are two pathways where the signals will go. The signals from cones, that is the color image or blob zones, that will go to the area 21, 22, mostly the temporal lobe, and the loss of these areas will lead, or the loss of this pathway or area will lead to loss of color vision, achromatopsia, inability to recognize color. And prosopagnosia is one of the prominent feature. These are these are few among the many issues that can be created. Prosopagnosia means inability to recognize face. You will see a person, you will see here are the eyes, the nose, he has a mustache, he has a cap on his head, but he will not be able to say that this is Peter. So this is prosopagnosia, inability to recognize face, and that can extend to naming of objects too. And areas, the signals from the rods part of the visual field, the rod stream goes to the area 18, 19 especially, and that are majorly responsible for visual motion, depth, and the color. These things will remain okay. The visual field, the color vision, the reading, they will be unaffected. Occipital eye field, I introduced it a little when we were talking about the frontal eye field. So this occipital eye field, it exists in the secondary visual area. It is responsible for the conjugate eye movement towards the opposite side. But unlike the frontal eye field, this area is not under your voluntary control and is responsible for involuntary tracing or scanning of an object. So both hemisphere is responsible for involuntary tracking of an object. This association area, the primary, that is somewhat the mixed area between the parietal and occipital lobe. This area, the area 13 angular gyrus, and that is damaged. It leads to a few symptoms, alexia, because the signal from this association area has to go to the vernix area through this pathway, and here the vernix area, the language is interpreted. So when that is damaged, the person is unable to read because unable to comprehend the language. He can still see, he can trace the letters, but he cannot understand what is written. He loses his ability to write, but his speech spoken understanding remains okay because it is coming from altogether different pathway. Again, we will see. And this area is responsible for a number of calculations. So inability to perform mathematical calculation, your recognizing fingers, your right left orientation, so these things are lost too. So this was all about the occipital lobe.